Okay, so grade 8, my very first question to you is, what is perimeter? So on the chat, can you answer for me, what is perimeter? When I say perimeter, what am I asking for? What do I mean? What is it? Again, can anyone on the chat tell me what is perimeter?
Let's go, my babes. We can do this. Let's go. You just need to write it down on the chat. What is it? Let's see some answers flying. We're about 36 of us here. So let's see. What do you guys think?
You can raise your hand as well if you'd prefer to use your words to tell me what perimeter is. Nice one, okay. Nice, Caleb. Jason, nice. All right, guys, I'm going to sort of take what I have here because I don't think we're going to spend all this much time trying to just get a definition. So the perimeter is your length, or you can say distance, either is fine, around the outside of a 2D shape. Okay, now a couple important sort of things there. It is around the outside. I'll draw a little picture now in a second. It is specifically of a 2D shape. When we talk about 3D shapes, so like a cube or a box or something, we don't really have perimeter. We've got surface areas and we've got volumes and stuff, but not perimeter. Perimeter is specific for a 2D shape. And importantly, I always think of perimeter like a fence. Okay, so if this is my shape, so my rectangle, if I were to put a fence around this shape, that would be my perimeter. So what length of fencing would I need to fence off my shape? That is the perimeter. So it is the length around the outside, or including all outside lengths of my shape. All right, now guys, there are formulas for perimeter. I'll write them down as we go along if there are formulas for the shape that we work with. But honestly, at a very basic level, to find the perimeter, and perimeter we use P, we add the sides together. That's it. So if you can look at a shape, figure out what sides make up the outside of your shape, and you just add them together, you're fine. Together. Okay, the together's gone weird, but we're just going to go with it. All right, so if we have a look at our first question, following on from what I've drawn, we have a rectangle here. Guys, I know it's a rectangle because all of my interior angles are 90 degrees. So it's a rectangle. I've asked you to determine the perimeter of the following shapes. Okay, so my first question to you is, if this was side A and this was side B, quickly put for me on the chat what the lengths of A and B are, given the fact that you know this is a rectangle. So what is A equal to? What is B equal to? Given that I've told you the shape is a rectangle. Nice, grade 8s. Okay, good. So we know that opposite sides of a rectangle are equal, which means that the side A would be 5 centimeters and the side B would be 15 centimeters. Okay, so when we are looking at perimeter type questions, we need to know what shape it is we're working with so that we can apply the characteristics. So here, I can now easily work out my perimeter because I knew this was a rectangle. and so now can work out the perimeter. Remember, perimeter is the outside length, so I'm going to have to add together all 4 sides of my rectangle, essentially follow that green path to get my perimeter. And so the perimeter, which I can use P, remember, is equal to 5 plus 5 plus 15 plus 15. And that gives me 40 centimeters. Right, so really nothing too tricky. When it does come to a rectangular prism, there is a little formula that we can use. So perimeter is equal to length plus breadth plus breadth. It's a little bit complicated, so we sometimes simplify this to 2 lengths plus 2 breadths, or this can be written as 2 times length plus breadth, because if you distribute it in, you get 2 length plus 2 breadth. But either way, that is sort of our general formula for a perimeter, or rather the perimeter of a rectangle. So as we go along grade 8, like I said, if there are formulas for what we're working with, I will write them down for you. But again, like, there's no need to stress about these formulas because of what I said here. Basically, the perimeter is you adding your sides together. If you can figure out what your sides are, and if you can add, you will be able to find the perimeter. Alrighty, so this over here is for the perimeter of a rectangle. Maybe just write that down so we don't get ourselves confused. Now, some schools, some teachers do give you these formulas, some don't. I'm quite a mean teacher and I kind of expect my kids to know the formulas, but 9 times out of 10, we do give you the formulas. Why are you hating me? But I do always think it's good to know, because sometimes what we'll do is we won't tell you what the formula is. So my grade 8 just wrote a test, and this is how we gave them the formulas. I've lost my mind a little bit. Right, so we gave them the formulas. Guys, me and technology today, we're not feeling each other. Right, we just gave them the formulas. We didn't say perimeter of rectangle, perimeter of, we just chucked a whole bunch of formulas, didn't label them. They had to know what was going on. I've given up. So it is always useful to identify. Right. I'm going to leave the first example up there in case you didn't take a screenshot. Let's have a look at the second example. You're going to do a little bit of this by yourself, probably most of it by yourself, but we're just going to talk through some of it. We want the perimeter of this triangle. So we want the length from R to P, from P to Q, and then from Q to R. That is going to be our perimeter for this triangle. Now, what I want you to notice is that you have RP, you have PQ, but you do not know what RQ is. Right, Caleb's on it. This is a right angled triangle. And so you can use Pythagoras to work out what RQ is so that you can then work out the perimeter. So that's exactly what I want you to try, grade 8. I want you to use Pythag to get RQ, and then I want you to finish off by finding the perimeter for me. Remember your units in your answer. We do sometimes take off a mark if you forget your units. So please remember your units. Jason, just be careful. That is not the formula we are using. That is for the area of a triangle. So half base times height is the area of a triangle. We are looking for perimeter. So just be careful. Okay, so guys, Caleb's giving you a clue. I've essentially told you exactly what to do. Let's give it a try. Remember, when you are using Pythag and you're working out, you have to give the reason. Good. I like that we're putting our Pythag reasons there. Well done. Nice, grade 8s. Okay. So if we start with the Pythag, obviously we have to start with the Pythag. Can't do perimeter without it. Remember hypotenuse squared, so RQ squared. I know RQ is my hypotenuse because it's opposite the 90 degree, is equal to 8 squared plus 6 squared. Guys, if you said 6 squared plus 8 squared, that's fine. Give my reason. Therefore, RQ squared is equal to 64 plus 36, which is 100. Now remember, we don't want RQ squared, we want RQ. So we have to square root both sides in order to get just RQ. And so RQ is equal to 10 centimeters. So now we worked out what RQ is. We can work out our perimeter, 8 plus 6 plus 10, which gives us 24 centimeters. Okay, so there are certain, and they said Pythagoras, certain perimeter questions where we do have to do a little bit of working out before we can actually get to the perimeter. It often involves right angled triangles and us using Pythagoras. This is often where we test Pythagoras. And so it's just important to be mindful of that. Now, again, guys, there is a little formula. Some of your textbooks will have this. Again, I don't see the need like specifically for this formula, because for the perimeter of a triangle, I'll write it this time, you quite literally just add together the 3 sides. Now, most textbooks label these sides A, B, and C. So if you had your triangle, any triangle doesn't have to be right angled, A, B, C. If you add those 3 sides, you're going to get your perimeter. Like I say, sometimes this will involve the use of Pythagoras in order to figure out one of those sides, which we all know how to do because we've done a whole course on it. But just be mindful, again, like I said right at the start, the basic perimeter formula, add your sides together. Right, so let's take a screenshot of those first 2. I've left the first one up in case you didn't already, otherwise of question B, and then we're going to have a look at question C. Are there any questions yet, grade 8s? Grade 8s? Remember, if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat, or at this point, when I'm asking, you can raise your hand. Looks like we're okay. All right, so I want you to try question C yourselves. So here's question C. I want to know what is the shape's perimeter. We're trying it by ourselves. So what is the perimeter of this quadrilateral? Remember your units. Nice, grade 8s. Good. All right, so first things first, what we need to recognize is the fact that on 2 of my sides, I've got these 2 lines, which means they are actually equal to each other. So those 2 sides are each equal to 12 centimeters. And then the other 2 sides are both equal to 5 centimeters because they both have one strike mark on them. So our perimeter here, again, just add up all the sides. 5 plus 5 plus 12 plus 12 gives us 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 12 is 22, plus 12 is 34. And again, remember your units, centimeters. That's it. Nothing more that we have to do. The only thing here was that if you didn't realize that the two lines and the one line meant that the sides were equal, you're a bit stuck. But we should know that we've been doing geometry, we've done geometry, and we did it for a while, so we should know what those things mean. Right, guys, so let's take my tongue today. Let us take a screenshot of question C. Then we're going to have a look at a slightly different way that these perimeter questions can be asked. And again, remember, any questions you might have, pop them in the chat. Okay, I'm just making this smaller because for whatever reason, I decided to put E there on the side. Makes no sense, but anyways. So let's start with question D. Yo, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, question D. The perimeter of the square below, of which I have not put a square in, because, you know, why on earth? So here's our square. Is 32 centimeters. Determine the value of y, the lengths of the sides of the square. So one thing we know about a square is that all four sides are equal, which means that technically all four of these sides are y centimeters. So let's give this one a try. I want you to think about it and tell me what you think the value of y is. You know, grade 8s with questions like this would be considered a slightly more complex question. You would need to sort of give a reason for what you're doing. When I do this question, I'm going to set up an equation. Sometimes when we ask you this, we would say determine the value of y by setting up an algebraic equation or using an algebraic equation, and then you have to do that. If we don't, like I say, some sort of like basic explanation is necessary so that we understand what you have done, all right? But sometimes if we do say set up an algebraic equation, then you do have to do that. And I'm going to do my working out like that. Good, guys, you're on it tonight. All right, so like I say, a square has 4 equal sides. These sides are all y. So y plus y plus y plus y is all equal to 32 centimeters. That's based on the information we were given. Y plus y plus y plus y is 4y. And so to now solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And so y is equal to 8 centimeters. Now remember, the reason that I've got y plus y plus y plus y is because this is a square. All 4 sides are equal to each other. And so, like I say, if I didn't ask you to set up an equation and you just went for it, I would say something along the lines of a square has 4 equal sides, therefore 32 divided by 4 is 8. That's then okay. But give us some sort of explanation of what you're doing. Often there is a mark allocated for that explanation showing that you've used the properties of your shape. Alrighty, so let's have a look at question E. I'm just going to move the brain break for a second. Also, now I understand why I put question E on the side, because I didn't leave myself enough space. Okay, so question E says the perimeter of a rectangle is 24 centimeters. The length is double the width of the rectangle. Determine the length and width. I'm going to ask you to try this by yourselves. The only hint I'm going to give you is that if you're struggling to understand the words, draw a picture. Take the words and put it into a picture and see if that helps you. But you're trying it by yourselves. You guys are flying through these questions, so a slightly more challenging one is good. Let's give it a go. And grade 8's, my advice is always, if we don't give you a picture, draw one. It honestly is really, really helpful. If you struggle to take the maths and put it into words, it's really helpful for you to be able to draw a picture for yourself. I want both the length and the width. I've told you what the perimeter is. And I've told you the length is double the width. And again, try and set up an equation. So try and actually set up an algebraic equation like we did here in question D. So with X's and Y's or whatever the case is, and solve for your unknown. And give you a few more minutes. Guys, remember, you can go and check yourself. Imagine your rectangle with your answers, add up the 4 sides and see that you do get 24. You can also check yourself by going back to the fact that I said the length is double the width. So if the answer you get for your length is not then double what your width answer is, you've probably done something wrong.
You guys are doing really, really good. Let's go. Let's keep going. Keep those answers on. You're doing a great job.
I'm going to give you 1 more minute and then we're going to have a look. And this, guys, again, is a complex question. Like, this is not a question that is supposed to be super easy. So if you're struggling, that's absolutely fine. Hopefully, once we go through it, it'll all make sense. Oh, I went to the gym and now I can't actually move my legs. They're so sore.
You guys are getting there. You're getting there. Let's go, my pibs.
Okay, guys, let's have a see. So I've drawn my rectangle, and like I say, like, it's so useful just to draw a rough sketch for yourself. It says that the length is double the width. So I'm going to say let my width be X centimeters. I'm not going to write the centimeters there. And what that means is that I know both of these sides are X. And I've said the width be X because I then know that 2X is my length, because remember, the length is double the width. Now, once I have that, I know that if I add these values together, so 2X plus 2X plus X plus X, I must get 24 centimeters. And that's what I was saying. Try and set up an equation for yourself, because you can all solve an equation. 2X plus 2X is 4X, plus X is 5X, plus X is 6X, is equal to 24. And then because we're solving for X, we'll divide both sides by 6. So X is equal to 4. Now, guys, remember we said that our width is equal to X. So what I now know is that my width is 4 centimeters. And if I substitute that into my length, which was 2 times x, my length is 8 centimeters, because 4 times 2 is 8. Okay. Then again, double check yourself. If these widths are 4 and these lengths are 8, 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. There are always ways to double check whether or not what you've done is correct. And like I said, I would really recommend starting to be comfortable or to become more comfortable with actually starting this working out by setting up an equation. It's what we're eventually going to expect you to do anyways, so you might as well start practicing it. Right, guys, so let's take a screenshot. Hopefully this makes sense, but obviously if you've got any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand. Once you actually do it, it's a lot easier. And obviously, like as I explained it, it's a bit easier. But we need to start thinking about these sorts of questions because this is definitely a question we could ask. Okay, so any questions you can ask, otherwise take your screenshots of question D and E. And then you have well deserving of a brain break. I'm going to scroll to now in a second. Okay, so here is your brain break for the day. I hope you appreciate the joke, try to make it fit in with our topic. All I'm going to say for the brain break, because I did it, make sure you are taking into account where there are 2 pieces of fruit and where there's only 1. Let's give it a go. And remember, guys, you know the drill, hopefully, that what we want is this last equation's value, and the first person to get it right will explain it for all of us. I will let you know, and then you can raise your hand to explain it. Nice, Londeka. First one, and it's right. Amazing. You want to raise your hand to explain it for us? Okay, so Londeka, you got it right. Do you want to raise your hand to explain it for us?
Oh, why not? Ndeka. Does
Alrighty.
anyone want to give it a try? Oh, I wonder what's going on. Oh, Ndeka is sick. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Hope you get
I'll give
better
you guys
soon.
another minute or so just to figure it out. So Caleb, I see you. And yeah, Lundeka, we hope you get better. Caleb, would you want to raise your hand? Nice. Sorry, I've panicked. Okay, Caleb. Okay, Caleb.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So basically, for the first one, I said 24 divided by 3, and that gave me 8. So then I said 40 minus 8 gave me 32. So then I said what times 8 gave me 32, and then it was 4.
Okay, so your lemons are 8 and this strawberry is 4.
So your lemons are 8 and this strawberry is 4. Yes, ma'am. And then for the last one, 8 plus 8. So the first was 16, and then the 2 apples are 13.
I got 14. Double check. 240 minus 16, 224. Minus 16, 224. I get 14. Do you agree? I get 14.
Oh yeah, ma'am, it was 14. Yeah, it's 14,
Cool.
ma'am.
Cool. So the last equation.
And then the last equation, ma'am, I just said 8 times 14 plus 16, which gave me, plus 8, ma'am, which gave me 120.
Nice. Okay, and guys, notice there how Caleb did the BODMAS. The BODMAS. So always remember that when you are doing these sorts of things, you have to follow BODMAS. Like you don't really have a choice in the matter. So that's why Caleb said 8 times 14, answer, which is something, 112, and then only plus the final 8. We have to do BODMAS. Right, Caleb, very nicely done. Thank you so much. And everyone else who got it, well done. We're going to move on here. Right, so the second question, I have said that, or rather I've given you information that we have a parallelogram and its perimeter is 50 centimeters. So if you were to go along the perimeter of this parallelogram, you know it's 50 centimeters. I am asking you to find the length of X, okay? Now, my first question that I quickly want you to tell me on the chat is, what do you know about the opposite sides of a parallelogram? What are their relationships to each other? We did this when we spoke about quads. So what do you know about opposite sides of a parallelogram? Nice, Lubanzi. Exactly, guys. They are equal to each other. Now, that's obviously a helpful bit of information for us because we then know that this side is 10 and this opposite side is X. So we have enough information to go and work out the value of X. So let's give it a try. I want to know what X is, please. Based on all the information I've given you, what is X? And remember again, grade 8, check yourself. If you know what X is, add the 4 sides together, make sure you get 50. Remember your units as well. Nice, guys. Well done. Good. Okay, so again, I'm going to set up an equation. And like I said, I would suggest you try and do this because it's eventually what you're going to have to do anyway. So you might as well get used to it. So we know that X plus 10 plus 10 must give me 50 centimeters. So 2x plus 20, I'm just adding my like terms, is 50. Subtract 20 on both sides, you get 2x is equal to 30. Divide both sides by 2, you get that x is 15 centimeters. Oops, that was all I had to do, right? The question just said find the value of x. I'm going to double check myself. If these are both 15, 15 plus 15 is 30, 10 plus 10 is 20, 30 plus 20 gives me my 50 centimeter perimeter. So I would always double check myself using substitution into my original question, make sure that I have actually done it correctly. All right, guys, so take a screenshot of this one because the next shape that we're going to have a look at has its own formula that we need to deal with. And so I want to just deal with that a bit separately from what we've been doing. Okay. Right, so our next shape that we need to be able to deal with is a circle. before we get into this specific example, I want to just chat about the circle, the formulas, what they mean, etc., etc. So when we talk about the perimeter of a circle, we actually have a special word for it, and it's called the circumference. Okay. So the circumference means the same thing as perimeter. It's just a special word that we use for a circle. So the circumference of the circle is this outside length of our circle. That's it. Special word for perimeter. Now there are two formulas that we use for circumference. Either we have 2 times pi times r, or we could just say 2 pi r, or our circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or just pi d. So these are the 2 bits of information that we need, or rather, these are the 2 formulas that we can use in order to work out circumference. Now, really importantly, grade 8s, you need either the radius or the diameter. You don't need both. You can work out both if you feel you want to, but you need one or the other because you've got 2 formula options. Now that's all well and good, but what are these things? Okay, if we don't know what diameter and radius are, this means nothing to us. Grade 8s, please can we just not do any area stuff on the chat? Right now we're just focusing on perimeter. We will get to area, but let's not confuse the situation. Okay, so here, this dot represents the center of my circle, and there's 2 important bits that we need to know. Firstly, any line drawn from the center of your circle to the circumference is called the radius. Could we also not do the question until I'm finished explaining? Thank you. So any line drawn from the center of my circle to the circumference is called the radius. Any line drawn from one end of my circumference to the other, but that passes through the center, this is called our diameter. Now, hopefully what you can see is that your diameter is double your radius. So if you know what the radius is, you can just double it to get the diameter. If you know what the diameter is, you can just halve it to get your radius, right? So diameter is equal to 2 times your radius. Your radius is equal to half your diameter, or diameter divided by 2, whatever, all right? So those are 2 important lines in our circle that we need to know. If we now go to the question that I have given you, we can see that in this case, I have given you the radius. I've got a line from the center of my circle to the circumference. And so the information here is the radius. Now, because I've been given the radius, or because I've given you the radius, I personally would just go and use the formula that deals with radius. There's no point in trying to do extra work if I have the radius formula. So using my radius formula for circumference, I know that my circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius, which is 4. Now, guys, on your calculator, you have a pi button. On top of this times 10 to the x button, you have pi. It's in yellow, so you have to use shift. So we will say 2 times shift pi, we get pi, and then times our radius 4. Now, the answer that you get, whoopsie, will be in terms of pi. So my calculator gives me 8 pi. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We could say 8 pi centimeters, but I don't know what the heck that means. What is 8 pi centimeters? So if we push our SD button, whoops, it will convert it to a decimal for us. And then we just round off to however many decimal places we've been told to round off to. So I'm going to round off to 225,13 centimeters. That's a little easier to understand, and generally that is what we'll do. Now, grade 8, really importantly, if you had used, so let's put a slash here, if you had used the pi times diameter formula, that is fine. Obviously, the first thing that you would have to do is you'd have to work out your diameter. So 4 times 2 is 8. But look at that, you still end up with 8 pi, which is 25,13. That's what I'm saying. It makes absolutely no difference which formula you choose to use. I would pick the one based on the information I've been given, but it really makes absolutely no difference. You will get the answer either way. So if you had chosen to first say 4 times 2 to get the diameter, and then say pi times diameter, fine. Nothing wrong with that. Right, so let's take our screenshots. If anyone has any questions for me, now's the time to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to give you one to try by yourselves. Yeah, so Kamba's asked, is it necessary to simplify the answer? So Kamba, I assume you mean to the decimals. Honestly, I would accept 8 pi, but I would do whatever the instruction tells you to do. So if the instruction says round to 2 decimal places, then yes, you have to. If it doesn't specify, technically 8 pi is actually the most accurate of the answers because nothing's been rounded off. So I would accept it, but just do what the instruction tells you to do. All right, so grade 8, what I want you to try is question C here. So just take note of what bit of information I've given you. In this case, I've given you the line from one end of your circumference through the center to the other end, which means that what I'm giving you is your diameter. So just take note of that, but let's try and work out what the circumference of question C's circle is. Yes, Kamba. So whatever 8 times 3,14152 blah, blah, blah is, that is your final answer, yeah. So guys, some schools might tell you that you must use pi as just 3,14. That's fine. Generally in maths, we use the pi button on our calculator. In maths lit, they tell you to use pi as 3,142. Again, it's what you're told to do. I use pi on my calculator. That's what I tell my kids to do. If you've been told to use 3,14, then that's fine. And then yes, your answer is 8 times 3,14, and that product is your answer. Right, for all of these, can we please round off to 2 decimal places? So come back again, my pi button is here above the times 10 to the power x. It's in yellow, so you'll have to say shift. Sorry, my buttons are all gone. So we're just gonna, so you'll have to say shift, and then you'll have to push that button, and then you will get your pi symbol. I'm gonna give you 1 more minute. Oh, sorry. Oh, excuse me, grade 8. So sorry.
Bless you.
Oh, okay. 1 more minute, just because I'm not seeing a lot of answers just yet. Oh. Remember, grade 8, you're not looking for pi, you're looking for circumference. So your answer should be circumference equals. Pi is a a number. Like there's no arguments about what pi is. Pi is pi. We're looking for circumference. Okay, let's have a look. So option 1 is to use the formula based on what you have been given. So I would now use my pi times diameter formula because I've been given the diameter. I do see that there was a question, I'll deal with it now. So I would say pi times my diameter, which is 15. So I would get 15 pi. If I round that off to 2 decimal places, I get 47,12 centimeters. Okay, so that's the circumference of my circle. If you chose to use the formula of 2 pi r, that's fine. That's actually the formula I always use. I hardly ever use pi times diameter. What you would first need to do is you would first need to go and work out your radius. Now remember, your radius is half of your diameter. So half of 15 is 7.5. And so we would have 2 times pi times 7.5. That's fine. You get exactly the same answer of 47,12. Either way, it is the yes. Either way, you get the correct answer. It's completely up to you. Personally, I would pick a formula and I would stick with it. So for me, I always use 2 pi r. Right, so I either have to find the diameter, find the radius or whatever, but if I've learned that formula, that's the one I'm going to use. But you can use either one, really doesn't matter. Okay, so Canva, when we okay, so Canva, I hope I've answered that question. So I've explained that we can use either formula. If you've been given the diameter, you can use pi d or you can use 2 pi r. Like I say, both formulas work. One, you might need to first find the radius or first find the diameter, but both work. You need to do whatever makes you comfortable. Lubanzi, yes, we're doing perimeter. Remember, the special word for the perimeter of a circle is circumference. Okay, so maybe let's just clarify that over here, guys. Circumference is the perimeter of a circle. Don't know why we need to have a special word, but we do. It probably has to do with the fact that we use pi, and so it's a new sort of concept, a new sort of idea. But we are, yes, we are looking at the perimeter / circumference of a circle. Okay, guys, so, oh no, okay. Let's take our screenshots. There's a question, what if we forget to write down our unit of measurement? So you would probably only have 1 mark taken off. So let's say, for example, your entire test, you forgot every single unit. We'd only penalize you once. In maths lit, they're a lot more strict with your units. In maths, we're not as strict, but just you will lose a mark somewhere. So rather just write down your units.